coming our way where we keep them honest, slicing and dicing and analyzing the leadership of the day here in the country. And we shall be joined this morning by Professor Jonah Kindiki, who is a governance and policy analyst. Aman Wanyora, who is also a governance and policy analyst. We'll be joined as well by Dr. Barak Muluka, who is a strategic communications advisor. And we'll be joined also by Kipruto Arab Kirwa, who is a governance and policy analyst. As always, you know what to do. You head over to our X handle at KTN News, where you can share your contributions, fire your questions, and of course, we'll have a handy opportunity to share that with the public as well. And also, you can follow me at Dibal Ainair. Let's see how the weather will be today before we buckle down to business. Right, why Raila Rigathi are pulling together? Azimio boss Raila Odinga and one of his bitterest critics, DP Rigathi Gachagua, are now backing the controversial one-man, one-vote, one-shilling model of resource allocation that was flushed down the drain with BBI, with the opposition chief saying he is happy the deputy president has seen the light. This story is on page 4 of the Standard today, and he can be seen here shaking a leg with Gikuyu traditional dancers during the handover of Limuru 3 report by the conveners of Chungwa House, or this at Chungwa House, I should say, Nairobi yesterday. He said the one-man, one-vote, one-shilling proposal advocated for at the talks will ensure a fair share of development for all Kenyans. You can follow the rest of the details on page 4, as I've indicated. Also, courts blow to Ruto's rules for stage agencies. That story, you can follow it on page 10. That row between the Public Service Commission and, of course, also the the head of public service, also the executive order that was issued by the president. That is a bone of contention. And you have a story on page 10 of the Standard today. Agony after police bullet takes away man's life. For days, Mathare has been crying for justice over demolition of their homes, but for one family, it is a double tragedy. They have not only lost their house, but also their kin who was shot dead. You have a story on page 3 of the Standard today. And of course, you can see an insert here of the boy or the young man that was taken away by the bullet. We have a Pulse magazine for the young and young at heart. Make sure you grab a copy as well. All that inside the Standard today. The Daily Nation, why Kenyans reject tax bill is a splash. Legislation proposed taxes to make life even more difficult for a vast majority, as the flagger would read there. And also you have the breakdown of numbers. 8 out of 10 Kenyans are opposed to the introduction of new taxes on bread, cooking oil, financial services, motor vehicles, and a new levy on environmentally unfriendly products. A new opinion poll has shown 77% of Kenyans say the finance bill 2024 will not have a positive impact on the economy. And 87% of Kenyans are opposed to the introduction of a 16% VAT on bread, while 86% are opposed to the introduction of VAT on financial transactions such as M-Pesa. Unease in schools and colleges over cash delays. With only 3 weeks to the end of the current financial year, the government is yet to remit billions of shillings meant for various education programs. The delays affect secondary schools, colleges offering technical and vocational education and training, that is TVET, as well as universities. Only primary schools have received the expected capitation. This is on the back page of the Daily Nation today. And one of the assistant directors at the NIS took his life. A tragedy there. Top detectives, death, secretive ways, and sudden change in routine. A senior intelligence officer who police claim died by suicide on Tuesday was planning to expand his popular restaurant in Kisumu City, according to staff who described him as generous but secretive. This story is on page 3 of the Daily Nation today. Also on football, we're ready for Burundi, says coach Engen Firat. Harambee Stars are bound to be facing Burundi today in the third 2026 World Cup qualifiers Group F match. Knowing this, 3 points that must be collected to keep their dream of a maiden appearance alive. That is the Daily Nation. The Star, winners and losers in Ruto's new budget is a splash today. Estimates billions set aside for hiring medical interns, students' loans, junior schools. MPs declined request amounting 306 billion shillings from ministries, departments and agencies. You have a story on page 4 and 5 of the Star today. Poverty is man-made. Colonialism never really ended. This is some of the placards that were raised yesterday. As you can see, public anger, members of civil society protesting against the finance bill outside Parliament on Thursday. That story, you can follow it inside the publication today. Raila backs Limuru 3, one man, one shilling push. And more boys than girls drop out of primary schools. Grim statistics there on page 2 of the Star. UDM turmoil, I'm still in control, says Malala after claims of clipped powers. And of course, we have a petition filed to remove him as the Secretary General of UDA. This is a Star. A new dawn for U.S.-African cooperation after Ruto visit? That is the probing question on Siasa Pullout magazine inside the publication of the Star today. The master of doublespeak is on the front page of the People Daily today. Integrity. President Ruto leaves true to famous political maxim, quote-unquote, you campaign in poetry but govern in prose, but disregarding key campaign promises as his allies egg him on. You have a story on page 4. The master of doublespeak is well fleshed out for you. Alarm after 8 officers seized for crime. That is a story that you can follow on page 8 of the publication today. Voice of the week. Members of the social justice movement protest on the streets of Nairobi of the rising cost of living affecting Kenyans with low income. Also exposed scandal of grabbed prison land is in the publication today. You have seen the light, Raila tells Gachagua, and this is on page 5 of the publication this morning. Let's buckle down to some business where 800,000 get hustlers loan ounces system is what is on the front page of the publication today. 465 million shillings lent to unregistered borrowers. Auditor flags expensive rollover fees. The Hustler Funds issued 465 million shillings loan to 809,351 Kenyans who had not registered for the product, exposing flaws in the operations of the microcredit schemes targeted at low-income groups. Auditor General Nancy Gadungu has revealed that persons not listed with the fund got cash within the first 7 months of its operation, even as defaulters surged to cross 8.2 billion shillings by the end of June last year. That story is, you can follow it on the page 2 of the publication today. And also new taxes to make banking services unaffordable. Banks have warned of higher cost of transacting money in the economy if Parliament approves the proposed introduction of VAT and higher excise on financial services. Also, US wants tighter, tighter rules on the wildlife trafficking and regulated fishing. There's a typo there. Taxpayers pay 17 billion shillings KQ loans in 9 months, and say CBK bags 12 billion shillings interest lending states. The Central Bank of Kenya will earn a total of 12.62 billion shillings in interest from emergency lending to the National Treasury in the financial year ending June 30th, 2024. All that inside the Business Daily today. In Uganda, State of the Nation, this was happening yesterday. Problem? What problem? President Museveni, it says he has used his national address to praise embattled Speaker of Parliament Anita Among and attack activists involved in exposing corruption, despite admitting to evidence of graft racket at the heart of government. Sidestepping key public concerns about crime and social services, the head of state tells Ugandans to keep calm, carrying on working and watch out for talking cows, right? With scarecrows there. You have a story on pay scarecrows, quotes I should say, or quotation marks. 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Daily Monitor is where you can follow this State of the Nation address. In Tanzania, Tanzania's fisheries policy in international limelight. Tanzania's empowerment of small-scale fishers has drawn praises at an international meeting in Dar es Salaam, with participants terming it exemplary. You have a story on page 2 of the publication today. 400 is the number of delegates from all over the world attending the 3-day Africa's Small-Scale Fisheries Summit in Dar es Salaam. Bunge approves measures to boost firefighting rescue. They include the need for the government to table a bill that will seek to compel local authorities to allocate funds in their budgets for purchasing vehicles and other rescue equipment. This is on page 3 of the publication. Notable takeaways from Samir's Korea visit also is tucked away on page 2 of today's paper. Inside Rwanda's proposed multi-billion drone operations hub. That is a story that you want to follow inside the New Times in Rwanda. Design and construction works on the drone operations center expected to kick off. And you have a story on page 3. Kagame, Habineza, Bayamana meet requirements to run for president. This is according to the electoral body NEC there. And you can follow the story also inside the paper this morning. And The East African has been holding this splash for us this week. He sees in limbo on cash crisis. Critical organs of the bloc, such as the regional court and assembly, have been forced to defer sittings as partner states hold $40 million in unpaid remittances. You have a story on page 4 and 5 of the publication, The African Economic Model We Want. This was happening last week. African Union Commission Chairperson Musa Faki. We have the Africa Development Bank, Akiumi Adesina, Kenya President William Ruto, and Kenya's Treasury Cabinet Secretary, that is Njuguna Ndung'u, launching the African Economic Outlook 2024 at the bank's annual meeting in Nairobi. Also, battered ANC Tech Stock 6 coalition, South Africa's ruling party, on course to lose majority for first time in 30 years. Ramaphosa likely to face calls to quit over poor showing. You have a story on page 10. And no response for besieged Uganda's speaker after UK sanctions on Anita Among. Washington has come with sterner staff, and this is on page 6. And of course, you saw also the president coming in her defense. This is East Africa this week. And looking at China Daily, the global edition, Xi education bridges key to China-US ties. Leader urges universities to cultivate more young ambassadors in his reply, or in his letter. President hails signing of trilateral railway agreement is also inside the China Daily. The Economist this week, meet America's most dynamic political movement, and it's all about the feminist movement, My Body, My Choice. This will be critical in the elections in November. 3 women who will shape Europe as well is another story you can follow inside. Boomers lauded and stingy, and Generation Rent goes global. The stakes in Mexico's elections. Of course, we know the outcome right now. We have the first female president in Mexico and Iceland as well. All right, you can get all the wiser as far as business is concerned. Asking smarter questions is important. It's the key to better strategic decision making, and you've got all the know-how inside the Harvard Business Review, and also how to win at influencer marketing as well with the latest publication. You can get all the wise as well. And this is what is happening in the UK. Sunak's big idea, the return of national service, and this is bound to be a catnip issue, especially as they're heading towards the polls as well. Seeking re-election. Some of the policies will be rescinded as well. One that is on the table as well is the UK-Rwanda asylum that is bound not to, as it seems, it will not really fly after all. All right, those are your publications today of the dailies. Make sure you grab a copy that really floats your boat to get all the wiser and informed as far as current affairs is concerned. Time to unveil our guest. As I mentioned earlier, we're holding court this morning with Professor Jonah Kindiki, who is a governance and policy analyst. Also, we have with us Bharat Maluka, who is a strategic communications advisor. Also, we do have with us Kipruto Arap Kirwa, who is a governance and policy analyst. Haman Manyura as well, governance and policy analyst. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Let's just begin with Professor here, just to get an introductory remarks. It's been a long week. The highlights of the week, we had polls yesterday coming out. Kenyans are feeling a bit, disenfranchised regarding what the finance bill is all about. They feel the country is not going in the right direction. Good morning. Your sentiments?
Morning, Dubar. I think what Kenyans are feeling is feeling of exclusion. Exclusion in terms of their contribution to the finance bill, and this is due to the high cost of living in the country. People feel that, as you put it, is pressurized because the poverty levels are still very low as compared to what is required from the people. There's a lot of taxation, and the suggestions in the finance bill, people are not comfortable because you look at the salaries have not been increased for a while. The businesses are not doing very well. So I think about 80% of the population in this country, they feel excluded in the process of production or means of production in the economy of this country. And I think that's why there is this hue and cry all over. And I think Parliament needs wisdom to handle this matter of finance bill as it comes to Parliament, and as you know, the Minister for Finance, or the Cabinet Secretary for Finance, is preparing to read the highlights of the budget very soon. So it's quite a heavy matter which is being discussed all over the country, and I think the leaders should be able to listen to the cry of the people. But on the bottom line is the whole idea of exclusion. People feel they are left out in poverty, and maybe they feel that those who are in leadership and policy making level, they are not really listening to them, and I think that's why they are bringing these issues, and I believe with the time somebody somewhere is going to listen to Kenyans and they respond positively on the way forward, and especially this issue of financial bill. Remember, Dibar, there's a huge debate on this, and other than other years, about the finance bill, and this comes every year. But this time round, I think Kenyans feel that really they have really been pressed, and the whole issue is the suggestions which are made on taxation is quite high, and if taxation is to be done, then I think the balancing on the other, or the income, should also be considered. What are people getting? Those who are salaried and those who are also self-employed in terms of businesses. Is the income of the people matching with the expenditure? Because when you talk of taxation, you are talking of the expenditure, because you are going to tax these people of whatever income they have, whether it's salary, whether it's income from businesses, whether it's whatever income they have, that is the income. So if you concentrate so much on the expenditure, on how you are going to get from these people, without considering what they earn, in terms of their input in the economy, and then that kind of equilibrium is not there, and that's why they feel they are being left out, and I think it's something to be considered. But more to that, you can find is a worldwide thing. If you look in South Africa, I think the main issue which has made ANC to lose, to get less than 50% of the total votes cast, is actually they are feeling, the South Africans are feeling the same, that people are being excluded in the process, in the economy. There's a high level of unemployment, and people feel that they are left in poverty, and they are questioning the leadership of the main ANC party, which is led by the current president, or maybe who is outgoing very soon after when they announce how they are going to form the government. And now they are considering to have a coalition government. So where they feel everybody is included. They feel everyone is included as has a contribution in the economic production of the country. So that it doesn't mean that only the 20%, like in Kenya, about 20% of the people feel comfortable in terms of what they can contribute in the economy. But about 80% are feeling the pinch, especially when you tax bread and commodities like milk and other things. So I think the whole issue is about exclusion and poverty.
Right, thank you. Barak, good morning. Your sentiments of the week? You had a lovely week as well.
Well, thank you very much. A lot has been happening these past few days. The finance bill is, of course, at the center stage, and I expect that we are going to make very significant inroads into it. Questions of management of ethnic diversity, I think, have also been on the table. And of course, since we last were here, we have marked Madaraka, which came all the way next door. When I say next door, of course, you understand.
Thank you. Let's hear from Kipruto.
Yeah, thank you, Deban, for the opportunity. The week has been interesting in many ways, but the most important for me is the challenge insofar as taxation is concerned. I say so because Kenyans last year had similar challenges and they prosecuted their cases. But eventually, the government of the day never listened to them. I'm worried, and I do hope that this time round they will listen. Otherwise, when you get to a situation where you are doing triple taxation, you run the risk of destroying every business that is supposed to be supported in this country. And coupled with that is the arrogance with which some of the members of the current administration are carrying themselves. I want to single out the young man from Molo, Kuria Kimani, who in his own wisdom or lack of it has been making very careless statements, including the one that he said Kenyans who feel that vehicles car circulation levy is going to be a pardon, they can leave their vehicles at home. The other day he made even a more outrageous statement that industries that feel that taxes are so high can relocate to Uganda, then export their goods to Kenya. This therefore means the young man either has chosen to be arrogant, because I know he's intelligent, but he has chosen to be arrogant because that is not what any patriot can say about an industry that's supposed to be domiciled here, telling us to relocate to Uganda, then you export to Kenya. Finally, on this particular aspect of the week, ethnic diversity is still a very dicey issue because we pretend to be national. We pretend to be talking about national integration the way I saw the president pretend in Bungoma during the judge service, while the same team, when they are in their own backyard, they talk about protecting their own. Now they have singled out Rigathi with a view to making the people of the mountain feel threatened by possible isolation. I feel this is the time that Kenyans must stop and accept that tribes do exist in Kenya, and we are still tribal up to now. There is no political entity that has been built. Kanu and Kadu at independence would have been said to be national parties that were embracing the diversity of this country. But subsequent to that, we've gone tribal, we've gone personal, so that any political arrangement is either crafted around an individual or crafted around coalition of communities or coalition of tribes. This is a worrying trend that is generally making this country look more threatened by tribalism than any other country in the region. I say so because there is this Kikuyu phobia that has consumed the Kenyans over the period. In the election that ODM was pitted against the PNU, they were talking of 4-1-1, 41 against 1. This is the kind of message some individuals are crafting with a view that they are going to cow the deputy president to accept that he can be punished, he can be vilified, he can be frustrated, but he has to keep quiet because he comes from a community called the Kikuyu. It is something that we, the people of Kenya, must resist at all times. Today is Rigathi. Tomorrow it will be Herman Manyora. The other day, the next day, it is going to be Barack Muluka. Then we go back to Professor Kindiki. It is unfortunate, and we must accept that every tribe does exist. And that diversity is what makes Kenya strong. But the moment we seem to be singling out a tribe and making it get scared, almost saying those in the Rift Valley must talk to their brothers in Central not to be united, is the height of pretense. There is no community in Kenya that does not talk about their own unity. We've heard of Luhya unity. In the Kalenjin nation, the current president has been able to successfully move the ladder because he was seen to be one of our own that is closer to the leadership. And now he's in the leadership. They are still using the same card to cow anybody who does not believe in his way of thinking.
All right, thank you. Herman Manyora, good morning.
Good morning to you, Debar.
Yes.
How is it going?
Very well, thank you.
Debar, to me this week, two things stand out. One is about Rigathi Gachagua, and by extension, the mountain. But about Rigathi Gachagua is that he has replaced Raila as the main man of the news. Every passing week, he confirmed that Gachagua now has taken over from Raila. And to me, yesterday was official handover when Raila officially handed over the baton to Gachagua. Because, I mean, for many years, if Raila wasn't around, then the papers were not even selling. TV was boring, you know, social media was quiet and silent. Now it's Gachagua. I think the guy should be celebrating and feeling great. The second thing that stands out for me, which is a little more serious, is about the pain Kenyans are going through and the reactions about the finance bill and all these kind of measures the government is taking. I think the bar for me, this is first a global problem. The world is trying to find a new bearing with the new masters in town. They are called the globalists. So that world leaders, countries have very little control with what's going on. Even around the year 2000 or thereabouts, even as people were celebrating Kibaki, those were global changes, liberalization and so on and so forth. Today we have a new order coming into place. Without going into the details, I think I can only point out that we are going through induced labor, painful induced labor. The country is being forced to transit from an informal order to a formal order, from a local order to an international order. So that even all these taxation measures must be seen within that context of a new world emerging. What will be, you can't stand in the way of this kind of change. All these businesses will have to be formalized. Every one of us will have to pay taxes. Whether even we hide under our beds, they will get us. This is the new world order, and Kenya is only fitting into that world order. The only problem, I'm calling it induced labor, because our managers, our leaders, do not seem to understand what is going on. So you hear the ministers talking the way they are talking, small young people talking the way they are talking. Pay your taxes first, complain later. If you don't have this, we shall tax bread because you are developing diabetes and so on and so forth. It is those even at Treasury, including the so-called economic advisors, simply don't understand we are trying to fit into a new order. If they did understand, then they will make the transition bearable and manageable. They don't seem to understand. It's a new order. The bar for your information, about 80% of all jobs in this country, all paying formal or jobs we don't call salary jobs, if you exclude agricultural jobs, are in the informal sector. All businesses, about 75-80%, they are informal businesses. So all this is now being pushed through an induced labor. I've always advocated for formalizing jobs in this country and businesses. This will be a booming economy, but not in the manner in which it's being done today. So we are scaring people. By the time we are through this, a lot of damage will have been done. A lot of damage. A lot of businesses will have closed. A lot of families will have collapsed. Let me tell you the bar. It is true that certain things can happen to you and you lose your wife. Certain things can happen to a woman and she loses her husband. Complete outside love and marriage, just you have a job, it is gone and it affects you. And somehow your family is disorganized. So I'm saying by the time these mandarins at Treasury and at State House get to understand the damage they are going to occasion, a lot of suffering will have been occasioned to the people. It's just a question of understanding. The world is transiting into a new world. Then once you understand that, you bring experts like Baraka Muluka and the rest, not just economists. You know, you can't have people with figures only. This is beyond figures. It's people who can think and see what the world is today, what it's trying to be, and how to mitigate the challenges and the dangers of transiting. That's where the problem is.
There's a very interesting also headline here, the master of doublespeak, integrity. They say that the president lives true to a famous political maxim, you campaign in poetry, but govern in prose, by disregarding key campaign promises as his allies egg him on. Professor Kindiki, you want to weigh in on that? Just what are your sentiments?
Well,
is it an hyperbole or is it exaggerated as a headline this morning?
it could be an hyperbole, and well, I think there is a kind of exaggeration, but why it seems like there is double speaking, it's not really the truth. And this is what my colleague is talking of, the new, I pick from there, the new Honda, that if you look at the promises made at the campaigns for last 2 years, last 2022, when the new government was taking over, the campaigns were targeting the poor, the hustlers. And these hustlers, the poor people, are the ones who are in the informal sector. And actually, nearly a half, I can predict, I don't have the figures, but I believe more than half of the businesses and the production in this country is really carried by these people. Only a small fraction of the salaried people who also, a fraction that contribute to the economy. Therefore, what the president is doing is trying to bring the balance between the dynasties and the hustlers. They have and they have not. Salaried and salaried. So in the process of trying to harmonize what is seen as double speaking, and then, so to speak, then maybe the media will pick at it and somebody will pick at it and say this is down. It's like he's doing a double speak, but I don't think it's really a double speak. But in governance, because you're talking of governance and leadership, you have to have a kind of a balance where you don't, one side does a tilt to overweigh the other. And you look at we are talking about 80% of production in this country is carried by the people who earn not much really, but if you had the total contribution in the economy, it's so much because it's little but it's earned by many people. And those who earn a lot are few people. So you have to put that a balance. But I think the president has really a duty to get the right people, to get the government moving on, and maybe where possible, try to get people have the info. I know they are there, but I think we have to rethink so that some of the people are making the life and the governance and the leadership very difficult to find a way of getting, getting in the back seat so that they don't try to antagonize the whole machinery of leadership and governance, and it look like what the president is preaching is not what he's practicing. I think that is the whole idea of the headlines there. That's what I can think about it. But he's trying his best, running up and down and trying to bring things together and bring things in order. And when in that position, by the way, people may think it's easy, but even one of us here, you are given that position. It's very challenging to balance the governance and leadership of the country, where you have got all these varying kind of, suggestions, and not only locally, but also internationally. Remember, there are also these superpowers, and these countries, they have their own interests, which may not necessarily be the same interest that we have as a country. Because if they are talking about manufacturing industries, and they are talking about the way the economy want to be directed, like what you are talking of, taxations and all that, IMF, World Bank, and even bilateral, kind of engagement and partnership. So all this involves, a lot of coordination and a lot of understanding. And I think in the current government, we need to give a lot of support as Kenyans. But what is surprising as is coming out is that now there are cracks even in that government. When the president says one thing, then his deputy is saying the other one. So now I don't know now where we are going to meet at the middle. Right. But I think that is why that there are those kind of challenges. But I think they will be overcome with the time.
All right, so you were talking about preaching and practicing. So during the campaign periods, he preached about the loans that with the current administration, that will not be the feature of the day. In 4 months, we've borrowed 104 billion shillings. So is it a mischaracterization, or how will you characterize that in light of what you're telling us?
I think it's quite in order.
Trillion, not billion.
It's a trillion, because we have said that they are Kenyan interests. And when you are doing campaigns, you do with the Kenyan interests. But there are also other interests, like international interests. And we are talking of this, you don't run a country in isolation. Sometimes you find that you may have to also take into consideration the interests of other countries who are also contributing to the economy of the country. So I think that's why I'm talking of the balancing, and the balancing in the administration, the governance, the management, and bring everybody on board, locally and internationally.
All right, let's hear from Kipruto Rapkirwa. Your sentiments?
And it's very interesting that Professor Kindiki seems to sympathize with this regime, even where things are obvious. The president, in his own statement, talked about a number of things. One, he said there shall not be increased taxation in this regime. The opposite has happened. He talked about in his inaugural speech that the deputy is not going to be vilified the way he had suffered under the previous regime, which was really not in keeping with international protocol. You cannot wash your dirty linen in public when various heads of state were present, and he was now talking about his predecessor, his previous boss. But the opposite is happening. You cannot tell me Rigathi's tribulations are just self-made. They are engineered and prosecuted from State House. That's why some ordinary mortals all over the country are talking against the deputy president. Not that I have so much time for Rigathi, but I get worried when we seem to increase the popularity of bad manners in the top positions of our nation. We suffered in the previous arrangement between the president and the deputy at that time. We seem to be suffering the same, because you cannot ignore those positions. Rigathi would have been unpopular at the beginning, but once you acquire that particular position, all of a sudden you get some gravitas. If I was to be made deputy president for 3 months, you cannot shake me away. I'll be impossible to be shaken away by anybody, real or imagined person. The third issue is that the current regime seems not to have translated their manifesto into a policy document for purposes of implementation, where public servants would understand these are the wishes of the government of the day. They seem to have come straight from the manifesto, and they want to implement things that have not been formulated to take cognizance of the existing order and the way we should go forward. That is supposed to be a practice of any decent government, and this regime has not been able to do that. The fourth issue is that he talked about no demolition. Now, a lot of demolition was done here, down the road in Athi River, where they were under the guise that they were going to assist to create space for housing. How do you bring down so many houses and pretend that now you are trying to do something about housing? Nothing has been done in Athi River. Nothing seems to be prepared to be done. Why didn't you levy those individuals the requisite fees for purposes of them paying and remaining where they are? There is so much land in this country that housing can be done. In some jurisdictions all over the world, you can have some kind of gated community almost 100 kilometers from the city center. Then you give them special transport direct to the city center. The final issue is the question of loans. He said there shall not be any loans. And that's why he was telling us you must pay taxes so that we reduce the loans. Now, the two are happening. Taxation is being done to the extent that has never been seen in Kenya before, including this one, car circulation levy. I remember the last time we were trying to capture that was in fuel, when the former minister, Amos Kimunya, said, we are removing the normal license we used to put on our vehicles so that we are able to incorporate in fuel. How better would we have dealt with the issue of car circulation levy than to put in fuel, so that when I'm driving my car, I'm able to pay for that. But when my car is not in motion, I don't pay for that. And everybody would be able to be captured in that particular bracket. We still got fuel levy under the existing laws. Now we are taxing people under the guise of vehicle circulation levy, which is punitive and it is likely to destroy our economy. You see, the more you increase in terms of taxation measures, you are increasing opportunities for corruption. In fact, I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that what has happened is that we have opened so many avenues for corruption, and the tax that we are going to rake in is likely to reduce by a certain percentage. That's why Treasury has been struggling, KRA has been struggling to ensure that they raise their targeted revenues, but the revenues have been falling below the expectations. It worries me, and therefore that headline is very appropriate. He is a man who believes in double speak. And that's why I've told you before, when William Ruto tells you, let us run west, make sure that you check to the east. You'll be running east. And that is what scares me about this country.
All right, Barack Maluka, briefly.
Yeah, thank you very much, Debal and fellow panelists. I completely associate myself with the views that have been expressed by Mheshimiwa Kirwa. And I think if there's anybody who cares about President William Ruto, his success, the Kenya Kwanza government, and who wishes them well, they should tell them the truth. And the truth is that they are doing badly. It has nothing to do with balancing things here, local interests, foreign interests, and so on. It's just that we have gotten into space where the head of state is advised by two people. One is called impunity, and the other one is called hubris. And this impunity and hubris is what you see in young people like Kuria Kimani, who are basically telling us you can go to hell. Now, let's just quickly look at some of the issues and give them a bit of emphasis here and there. The president was somewhere in Western Kenya, and he was talking about and against something called tribalism. When you look at the entire architecture and design of the top echelons of government, you see that reflection of ethnicity. And Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, before the bad blood between him and His Excellency the President set in, was the person who was telling this country that government is about shareholders, and that the sharing will go to certain ethnic communities based on how they voted in the last elections. And 6 out of every 10 appointments that Mr. Felix Kosgei announces